Like Dr. Sebastian Rushworth says, the people who died of COVID did not die of COVID, they died with COVID. That is, the inflammation in their body was so high. By reducing the leptin and insulin resistance, we can successfully reverse diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, and related problems. Hi, I'm not afraid of the coronavirus. This is not some nonsensical bravado that I'm just spouting off. My confidence is based on science. I'll get into that a little later. But first, let me offer you a perspective. There are some things that we can control, and there are some things that are outside our control. For example, the coronavirus is not under our control. Computational biologist Artem Babian has recently discovered 130,000 new RNA viruses. The Ebola virus, the common cold, and of course the recent coronavirus are all RNA viruses. Of this new discovery, he says there are 44 coronaviruses. And he says you should be worrying about a coronavirus if you're an axolotl, a fugu fish, or a seahorse, none of which you and I are. And he says a lot about these coronaviruses which just flew over my head. How they swap genetic material, they have segmented genome, and how they reproduce. And even in the latest news about the mutation that we've kept hearing for the past 2 years, this variant, that variant, this mutation, that mutation, this spike protein, signal peptide, some N terminus, and all of this, and oh, the coronavirus is mutating. Really? What's new? Viruses are supposed to mutate. Why are we making a big deal and panic out of the whole thing? Of course, science has enabled us to discover these things, but it doesn't give us the power to control these things. So viruses like the coronavirus are not under my control. I watch the news, I read articles, and all I can gather is knowledge, not control. But what gives me confidence is something that I can control. The food that I eat, that I take from my hand to my mouth, is something that I can control. Why am I talking about food in relationship to the coronavirus? Is there a connection? Yes, let me explain. Looking at the data from the past 2 years of COVID, we have realized that there are some people who were very badly affected to the point of death, and some who were not affected at all, or just had it like the common cold. What is the difference between these two? The data says that the people who were badly affected are those who had metabolic health conditions. Their metabolic health was bad and their inflammation was high. What is the metabolic syndrome? It includes conditions like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, and related problems. When we go a bit deeper and try to understand what is causing these diseases, we see that leptin and insulin resistance are the root cause. I've explained this with research and reports and in great detail in the video, A Tragic Meeting of Two Pandemics. If you'd like to know about it in depth, please check out that video. So these underlying root causes, which are present in almost every individual with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and obesity, namely leptin and insulin resistance, is caused because the body is not able to respond to these signals of leptin and insulin. They become resistant. Now, why does resistance happen? When there is overexposure of leptin and insulin, the body resists it. Now, can we reverse resistance? Yes, we can reverse insulin and leptin resistance. How can we reverse it? By removing the exposure, we can reverse the resistance. How can we reduce overexposure to leptin and insulin hormones? We have to know how and when they are secreted. Leptin and insulin is secreted when we eat food that is high in carbohydrate, especially processed carbohydrate in flour form. To reduce leptin and insulin resistance, we have to reduce carbohydrate-rich foods. Our sources of carbohydrate should be vegetables, not ground, fine, refined flours. We should have a moderate protein intake, and we should increase our intake of good fat. These are called LCHF, low carbohydrate, high fat foods, or paleo food, or ketogenic food. By changing what we eat, we can reduce our leptin and insulin resistance. By reducing the leptin and insulin resistance, we can successfully reverse diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, and related problems, which experts call chronically progressive disease. They say that this disease will progress while you, the human being, degenerate, and that you ought to take medicines to treat these till the end of your life. That is not the truth. You can reverse these diseases, and there are thousands and thousands of testimonials on Google of people who have reversed and stopped medication for diabetes, for hypertension, people who have reduced even up to 75% the plaque formation in their heart, people who have had remissions for their cancer by just changing the food. The human race is so intelligent that it can discover new viruses. It has amazing technology to send man to the moon, to travel in space, and yet we do not have the wisdom to see something that is right in front of us. The solution is in our hands. The solution to not die of a coronavirus infection. The solution to not be adversely affected by a viral infection. The solution to not die of chronically debilitating diseases is right in our hands. The solution for a healthy life is in our hands. The solution to a good quality of life is right in our hands. It is in the food that we eat. If we eat food that have controlled and low levels of insulin and leptin secretion, we will not have insulin and leptin resistance, which is the underlying cause for all these metabolic syndrome conditions. And the people who had these are the people who died of the coronavirus infection. Like Dr. Sebastian Rushworth says, the people who died of COVID did not die of COVID. They died with COVID. That is, the inflammation in their body was so high that when the virus attacked their body, their immune system could not fight back the infection. Now, people with a healthy immune system fought back the infection and they recovered from it in a day or two. It passed like the common cold. But people who fell very sick, needed to be admitted in the hospital, needed to be admitted in the ICU, and who even died. Now, their immune system was weak because the inflammation was very high. And inflammation is an underlying basal problem for people with metabolic health conditions like diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and obesity. Inflammation has caused their immune system to, instead of attacking just the viral cell, to attack their healthy cells as well. And the cytokine storm, or a heightened inflammation in the body, is what caused their death. Do check out Dr. Ron Rosedale's interviews about this that I give in the source links, where he talks about how a food change can help a corona-infected patient if they are at home. And if they are hospitalized also, a change in food to a low carbohydrate, high fat intake can help them recover very fast and go home soon, reduce their stay in an ICU, reduce their stay in a hospital. And if they are to take IVs, then a fat-based IV instead of a glucose-based IV will help reduce the inflammation in the body and help fight the infection fast and get well soon. And so, like Dr. Babian has discovered 130,000 viruses, we don't know how many thousand more are there. Okay, forget the undiscovered ones. How about the discovered ones? If even 1% of these have an interaction with the human race and keep coming to us as hosts because they cannot live on their own, is our body equipped to fight them off? Are we healthy enough that such a virus just pass off like the common cold? Yes, it can. And that is within our hands. So while something like a virus and its duplication are things that are not under our control, our food and our health is very much within our control. And we can change the outcomes. We can influence the outcome if we are healthy. So I use what is within my control to conquer and fend off and fight something that is not under my control, instead of focusing all my reserves, energy, time, and money on something that I cannot control. Which is what much of the world seems to be doing nowadays, including the authorities and the experts. And I say this not just because I have the knowledge that I have read and learned from all the LCHF experts on whose shoulders I stand, to whom I am extremely grateful. I also from experience. My family, including my daughter, had the infection. I speak about it in another video. Please go check it out. As a wise person, would you rather change something that is in your control to fight off and overcome something that is outside your control? Would you not do that? The power is in your hands. Click or tap the like button if you like this video. Share it if you think it will be useful to somebody. Subscribe and click the bell notification if you'd like to receive further videos from Indian LCHF. Thank you.